I've got some screenshots for you to take a little peek at. I'd like you to do that. You can also get these from the user's manual, but then there's a little something special at the end that we're going to talk about. So when we're talking about evidence files, we can look at all the different evidence files that are out there, and as of EnCase version 7, they've actually changed the file extension and made it a little bit more robust. You'll notice that it says there EX01. It's a 4-digit file extension. It used to just be E01, and it is a new file format updated for version 7. This new evidence file and logical evidence file are available to you. It helps with the compression and preserves the bitstream images, and it's a little bit more robust than the original file system that they were actually using. That's EnCase's words, not mine. We have a built-in registry viewer. Remember, you still have to build your filters for this to actually dig down into it and look for particular registry keys. However, the EnCase community has actually come together and taken a lot of the information from all the different registry aficionados there and brought them together inside of this interface for you. They've made it a little easier, but it's not everything that's out there. They also do a good job of the timeline view. I actually like the compression on this timeline view. So every time you create a bookmark in your evidence file, that bookmark is then identified in this timeline. It's a little tiny green box as a bookmark, and then it may even have more data put inside of there if it's more than 2 files, so that you can see kind of where the activity has been that is related to this particular case and the search and seizure that we've been requested to look for. The bookmark files folders sections is really easy to find. There's a lot of different right-clicking in there. You can literally drag select multiple items and choose bookmarking. I think that's very elegant. File signatures, there's all sorts of different file signatures built in so that when you do your file carving, remember, you're not looking for the extension on the end of the file. You're looking to get inside of the file and look at that hexadecimal representation of what that file header was. That's built in. Those file signatures are built in. So for your file carving, you can go in there and say, okay, this is a JPEG file. I want to look at it, and I want to render it as an image. I want to render it as a doc, and I've got all of those different possible file signatures built in for me. They're continually updating that. If you're building keyword searches, you can save keyword searches and save keyword files for different types of cases. If you have embezzlement data, if you have keyword searching for different types of illicit activities, and there's a bunch of slang that goes along with that, you can build up those slang dictionaries that fit that for that geographic region or for whatever you're doing. It could even be a different language that you have built inside of it. This is the one that I really like in EnCase 7. Smartphone analysis of data dumps is here. And you notice that they have the Apple iOS here, but they also have all the other supported devices out there. So this is great because forensics really is being pushed in 2 directions. It's going from the physical drive and the physical location. It's being pushed out to the cloud on one side, and it's being pushed out to the mobile devices on the other. So it's really good that they actually support the smartphones. The modules and the way that you can set up the modules is really elegant. They have just a whole host of modules that you can add in here and organize, enable, and disable. So if you don't need the phone forensics module, you can deselect it, and what that does is that reduces the memory footprint, thus putting more memory at your fingertips for analyzing the particular file that you're working on. Now, I want to leave you with one last thing in this chapter before we go, and we want to talk about process. Casey came up with a very interesting diagram in his book, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Get Casey's book. It's definitely worth the read. It's a little heavy on the law for some of us and kind of light on the technology, but as an understanding of how forensics works and forensics investigation works, especially if you're going to deal with law enforcement, it's an excellent book. And what Casey says is, hey, a whole bunch of people have a different process out there. And he lists his first from 2004. And you'll notice that that's a 10-step process that we've already covered in one of our previous modules. And he says, mine's good, I like mine, but what are the others? Because you're going to interact with other forensics investigators and you're going to say to them, hey, what process do you use? And somebody will say, oh, I use Cohen from 2009. I use a DFRWS from 2001. Oh, okay, well then I got to realize that in that particular process for Cohen, we don't talk about preliminary considerations or planning. That's assumed in that particular model. Notice that Cohen, he adds in the destruction on the other side, and my model doesn't include that, so they know that it's part of their closing. But a lot of them have the same concept, but they call it a different thing. Let's look at Casey. His last step is reporting, and somebody else calls it presentation. Somebody calls it documentation and reporting, and somebody just calls it present. So they all fit the same way. They all flow. Usually some have something early and something late, but they always usually have the same thing in the middle, but it might be called something else. So when you're talking to other forensics examiners, ask them what process do they use. And they may take a mishmash of these processes and build their own. There's no one right way to do it because this is a relatively new discipline. That's a little look at everybody's process. That's a little peek at EnCase. I hope you'll go to EnCase and download the user's manual and then even give the 14-day trial a chance.